Hi. A little bit of a quick chat on a few tips. There's a lot of videos on YouTube with hints and tips, but let's see if I can give you something slightly different to the usual. But before I do that, I thought I'd just show you a couple of models, because generally there's just no space to actually line up a whole bunch of models. I don't do a whole lot of German, but I really did like this Tamiya ME109. Very nice one. And perchance the other one that I grabbed is this, what is this, Adornia 19? I can't remember now. Built this one ages ago. Matchbox kit, very, very nice. Absolutely loved it. For those of you that are sharp-eyed, you will notice that I still have two struts that I haven't put in due to the positioning being a little bit tight there, so I still need to get to that. I'll try and remember to show a couple of models each time I sit here. This ME109, one of the things that I was trying to do with it at the stage was to be absolutely perfectionistic, to make almost one of those box art models, absolutely pristine condition, just beautifully built, no weathering, good enough to be on a box cover maybe. Okay, let's start with this one. So I'm sure all of you keep your sprue, but do you keep your square, or it's not quite a square profile, but I think this one comes from the Vulcan. It looks huge enough to have come from the Vulcan kit, Airfix. Keep your rectangular square shaped ones as well. They're very, very handy in different thicknesses for various aspects of joining seam lines. I'll still do a video on that, strengthening, cross bracing, all sorts of things like that. I've got a whole section of round sprue, square sprue. If you've got a friend who does Games Workshop models, almost all of their sprues are a very, very nice, crisp, not quite rectangular, close to that section with angled edges, and very, very handy if you can get someone to give you a bunch of Games Workshop sprues. Very handy to have. I don't know if I've seen someone stretch sprue on a YouTube video, so I thought I'll just do one here quickly. I'll do two. I'm going to do firstly just not a stretching but a bending, and I mean there's various reasons you might want to do that. You might even want to get a slightly thinner one and then also bend that. I mean not too thin, you might be looking for some interesting section. So the amount of heat that you give it will sort of determine its pliability, and then of course I know all of you have done it. You give it more heat and it depends how okay, I'm going over this joint at the moment, but obviously you choose a nice clean section, and then depending on how much heat you gave it, you've got an amount of stretch. Stretch it out, but then let it relax that pressure a little bit, and then you'll sort of start feeling it cooling. Just hold it there till it's nicely cooled. And it's also nice to actually keep a bunch of these sections of stretched sprue in various thicknesses. Clip that off, put that aside in a box. Okay, this tip involves two halves that are going together, and they have you're not hardly going to see it here. They're little locating pins. So obviously, with a lot of halves going together, you test fit and you judge whether those pins are correct. Now, I'm assuming that the pins are correct, because if they weren't, you just file them off and you'd have to do manual positioning. But now I'm talking about where they actually are correct, but the holes are a little bit too big for the pins. So when you glue it, you're actually able to shift off center a little bit if you're not sort of paying attention to that. So I just wanted to, in fact, this one can do that. No, it's too dark in the video. Well, there you can just see that. You see there, I'm able to move that. Move that edge. So if you just glue that, you can put yourself into a position where you need to do very unpleasant rounding of your parts afterwards, and they shouldn't be adjusted like that. You really need to get your alignment, your curvatures, judge it, judge that. I can tell that this one is quite nice on one side and on the other side it's not. So I'm going to have to look at this piece and just decide on that one. In some cases, you've got where the one side has cooled narrower than the other side. I'm exaggerating in this image, but you then need to stretch the other one out with a little bit of something like Sprew again. I tried this yesterday. This was quite interesting. So I didn't want to dechrome all of my parts, but when I was looking at it later and I was spraying some other parts which were dechromed, I thought maybe if I just give a light coat, and I was spraying a gunmetal, just a very light coat of gunmetal right over this Tamiya sort of factory chrome, and it actually did the job okay as a quick and nasty method of just bringing that that very bright chroming down. I'm not going to recommend it as a competition finish, of course. The correct way to handle that is to dechrome and spray properly. But I mean, if you're looking for just dropping that very bright toy looking chrome, I mean, another option would be to use the Tamiya Smoke clear color, which would just dim it down a little bit, keep the gloss. Just thought I'd show you that. So I'm sure many of you are putting your parts on toothpicks, and then into a sponge is a very handy way, and on some occasions I've got a whole sponge full of small motorbike parts as I'm doing them. I'm sure you've seen that being done. With the stretched sprue, sometimes what I'm doing, and that sort of comes from these bits which I just did just now, you take off, you don't make a tooth in, and I've made a part which, let's get the light on there, where I could just very lightly glue it on there, because I don't really have something that I can stick a hole into, although on occasions I choose a side of something which is completely hidden or gets glued against, and I drill a small hole. But these sprue sections are quite handy for just a dab of glue, just enough to hold this for spraying, and then of course putting onto a peg for standing while you spray. I mean, of course I'm holding it in my hand. If you just put it on the table on a peg, it'll blow over. Oh, okay, so I've got, apart from Sprew, I've got various little collections of various thicknesses of plastic card, as I'm sure most of you do have. And on occasion of gluing two halves of something together, I'm not happy that that joint is adequately strong and could actually come apart, and I will take a small piece of, if it's in a place which is on the inside so that you won't see it, I'll take a small piece of plastic card in accordance with what I think the strength for that bit of strengthening should be, and put it in there. Okay. I think most of you are using decal sole and decal set, and many of you are using some form of future wax, floor wax. This is just whatever brand was available in the supermarket, and it works perfectly. I use it all the time for clear coating. But if you've done some decals with sole and set and you haven't wiped the surface afterwards, once they're dry, with a bit of a wet cloth or a wet piece of tissue, and you then spray your clear acrylic coat, the acidic nature of the sole and set is going to cause your acrylic clear layer, to a water-based layer, to totally stuff up. It's going to that acid attracts it or repels it in certain places. So make sure that you have cleaned your surface, your model surface, after sole and set, for instance. Putting on those decals, the propeller name, and then spraying a clear over that. Make sure you've wiped down each of those blades. One of the problems that I get myself into with decal sole and set, I like them so much, and they're so effective at getting decals to set, but what I do is I'll take a bit of, I can't remember which one is first. Is it set? I'll put a little bit on the wing or on the fuselage, wherever I'm about to put the decal. I'll put the decal down, position it, but I'm struggling to position it exactly within time. And what's happening is the acid of decal sole and set softens it's ever so slightly softens the surface of paint and your decal, so they start sort of adhering to each other really well, and you start losing the ability to position them. And I have damaged a couple of decals as I'm trying to do that absolute last final adjustment. And I think that's where maybe part of the procedure that you're supposed to use is get it in position first with its own glue. Hopefully the decals have got enough glue of their own. I know some of the decals, by the time you've got them onto the model and off the sheet had so little glue to start with, there's next to nothing holding it onto the, I mean, it's only the water adhesion that's holding it on. But let's assume your decals are reasonable enough to have that, so that you're not putting on decal sole and set till they are sort of finally in position. Now, of course, that sort of semi-defeats the point of sometimes the shape of the area where you're trying to fit that decal into needs the sole and set. It needs that decal to already be softened. So, I mean, both methods work. Just be aware of that sole and set, after a certain while, a couple of minutes, you're going to really struggle to position your decal, because I'm sort of trying to get that final seating. I'm positioning it, I'm pushing it down, I'm positioning it, I'm pushing it down with a bit of wet tissue or a bit of cloth, and I just get it wrong at that point where it now finally is well seated. I can't find my glue stand. I've got a nice stand, a little piece of wood about this size, with a cutout for the Tamiya glue, a cutout for a Humbrol tin, a cutout for something else and something else. Four things that I commonly have on my stand. One of them was a little bottle of terps, one was a bottle of thinners. which is really, really handy. I love that thing because you don't bump over any of your important things. But it fights with my desk space, and I've already got that problem. So this poor piece of wood heads off to the garage, then I clean my desk and it comes back from the garage, and so we have this battle of wits between me and space on the desk, and I really need to get it organized again. And the last little point that I think I was going to talk about was Alclad. That's probably my favorite paint. I'm looking for something. Well, okay, there's that. Yeah. So the Alclad colors, probably my favorite paints for getting the metal effects on certain areas. If you haven't yet delved into Alclad paints, that's really worth watching some videos on that. And if you were just going to do one, let it be either the aircraft aluminium or the chrome. I'd pick chrome any day, but that's because I do a lot of things that have chrome on them. Okay, hope that was mildly interesting. Cheers.